My name is Shivam, and today we will discuss about a very important concept in system design, that is availability. So before designing any system, the very first thing we need to make sure is that it is highly available. So basically what does highly available means? So it means that the user should be able to access our system 24/7 and there should not be a single time when our service is down, which means we can't afford downtime in our system. So let's take example of Facebook. So basically Facebook is available anytime. We can use Facebook anytime. So had Facebook designed in such a way that it was only available for certain period of time, then the experience would not have been better and it would have been worse. So basically we would not be using Facebook and there would have been some other platform like Facebook which would guarantee highly availability and we would be using that. So as a developer, we need to make sure that the systems we are designing are highly available. So now there is one more thing. So basically there are certain systems wherein we can still allow some downtime, but there are other types of system wherein we can't allow downtime at all. So basically we need to decide like how much availability we want in our system based on the use case. So let's take example, if we are designing a trading software and if our system gets down during the trading window, it is high risk of losing money for our customers. So in such a system we can't afford having a downtime. So let's see how we can measure if our system is highly available or not. So basically availability can be measured on basis of how our system responds to failure. So basically how our system will perform if one of the servers fail, or if the database fails, or if the caching layer fails, or any other component in our system fails. So we need to check if our system still remains operational after these failures or it will be completely gone down. And the term used here is, so basically it is called fault tolerance, which means how fault tolerant our system is. And now how do we denote this the availability of our system? So let's say our system is 99% available, and what does this mean? So this means that our system will be available around 361 days in a year. Like 99% is basically 19% of 365 days, which is around 361 year. So 361 days. So basically we can denote this availability in terms of 9. So basically since we are saying our system is 99% available, which has two nines, so we say that the availability of our system is two nines. And if our system availability is 99.99, then we will say that our system availability is four nines. So basically we denote availability in terms of nines, and this is the standard way of denoting the availability of our system. So basically when you start working in a real life and start designing a service which would be used by multiple other service, you need to define the SLA of the service, which means the service level agreement. And in the SLA you need to clearly mention the availability you guarantee for your service. So let's take example of cloud providers. So when we plan to use any service provided by the cloud providers like AWS, we first check for the SLA of that service before using that service, or before even including that service in our system design. Because like let's say the SLA of that service is two nines and the SLA we plan to guarantee for our system is four nines, and so in that case we can't use that service because it will not obey our SLA. So, so let's take example of AWS Postgres as a service. So basically, as communicated on their website, the SLA they provide for Postgres is 99.95, and which is like three and a half nines. And they also clearly state that if this SLA is not met, what they are gonna do. So basically, they says that if this SLA is not met, you are eligible for to receive service credits. So this is how like each service needs to communicate their SLAs and define like if that SLA is not met, then what compensatory benefits will the customer get. Now you would have got an idea that it is highly important to design available systems. But how do you design such systems? Let's talk about it now. So this is the core part of this video. So basically you can make highly available systems by following the availability pattern. And what is that pattern? Basically it is failover plus replication. Let's first talk about failover, and failover are of two types. One is active passive failover and the other one is active failover. So let's first talk about the first failover, that is active passive failover. So with active passive failover, heartbeats are sent between the active and the passive server on standby. And if this heartbeat is interrupted, which means that there is some issue with the primary server, then the passive server takes over the active server's IP address and resume the service. So the length of the downtime here, which is like the time between the active server goes down and the passive server comes up. So basically the length of this downtime is determined by whether the passive server was already running in the hot standby or whether it was whether it needs to be startup from cold standby. So basically that determines the how long our downtime will be, and only the active server handles traffic. This so this active passive failover can also be referred to as master slave failover. Okay, now let's move on to the active active failover. So basically, what is active active failover? So in active active, both the servers are managing traffic at the same time and spreading the load between them. So if the servers are public facing, then the DNS would be need to know about the public IPs of both servers. And if the server are internal facing, then application logic would be need to know about the both servers. So active active failures can be referred to as master master failover. So basically we have talked about active passive failover, which is equivalent to master slave failover, and we have talked about active active failover, which is equivalent to master master failover. So now we have talked about both types of failover. Let's see what are the disadvantage of using the failover. So first one is the failover adds more hardware and additional complexity. So as you can see, we always need to have a backup server and the complex logic behind switching from active node to the passive node. So the failover looks very simple, but it is not. So in this picture, you can see that initially our system is performing normally, and then the failure occurs due to some reason, and then we perform the failover, and then the service gets back to normal. So looks simple, right? So this failover is looks very simple, and we can achieve it easily, but it is not. So let's use this diagram to understand how complex the failover can be. So initially the system is performing normally. So and there occurs a failure. So now the failure has occurred, but it is not detected. So our monitoring service will take some time to detect the failure. And when the monitoring service detects the failure, they delivers the notification. So after the notification is delivered, the failure is detected. So basically now the failure is detected, but the failure is not yet initiated. So as soon as we get the notification, we have to initiate the failover. So what does initiation of failover means? So we need to activate the passive node. So now we trigger the command to activate the passive node. So after triggering the command, so basically we need to wait for the passive node to start performing. So after waiting, there are two possible cases: either the passive node activation passes, or either the passive node activation fails. So if the passive node activation fails, this means our failover is unsuccessful, and this means our system will be down. We can't do anything now. But if the passive node activation passes, then what is the current situation? So basically the current situation is the passive node is activated, but the traffic is not yet redirected. So now what we need to do is we need to change the IP of our passive node to our original IP, which was the IP of active node, and basically then the traffic will be redirected to this node. So after we change the IP, the traffic redirection starts, and if it succeeds, then we say the failover is succeeded. So the failover looks simple, but it is not. It is very complex, and I hope this diagram was able to basically help you understand more about failover and how complex it is. So basically it is not over yet. So after failover, we need to do the failback as well. So when after some time our primary node will be restored, so we need to do the failback. So basically we need to redirect the traffic now to back to again our primary node. So as soon as the primary node gets restored, we need to activate it. So basically what happens is primary node is now restored, but it is not activated. So what we do is we basically deliver the notification and initiate the failback. So after initiating the failback, we need to basically resynchronize the data. So because the node was not down for some time and it's not up to date with the data, so we need to basically resynchronize the data. So there are two possible cases here: either the data resynchronization fails, so in that case the failback will be unsuccessful, which means we can't still use the primary node and it will be down again. And if the data resynchronization completes, which means the primary node is reactivated. And now basically after reactivation, what we need to do, basically like we need to again change the IP. So basically we need our original IP back. So we will change the IP and then we do the redirection, traffic redirection. And in that case, if there are again two cases, either the traffic redirection passes or fails. So if it is passes, then we say that we are back to the normal operation and our primary node is back and it is working. So this is the complete picture of failover and failback. I hope now you understand the complexities and how you are gonna actually when you basically implement failover and failback for your system, how complex it's gonna be. It's not as simple as we think it to. So initially I told you about the basically the availability pattern has two things, the failover and replication. So now I hope failover is completely clear to you and you have understood it very well. And let's move to the replication. So replication is also of two types, like we had two types of failover. So replication is also two types. One is master slave replication and the other one is slave, basically master master replication. So let's talk about the first master slave application. So basically it is like basically the master serves all the reads and writes and then replicates the writes to one or more slaves. So which means that if the master goes offline, the system can continue to operate in read only mode, because the other slaves are only used for read only, and the master was used for writes. So basically when the master goes offline, and then the system can continue to operate in read only mode until the slave is promoted to a master or a new master is provisioned. So basically among those slaves, what we need to do is we need to appoint a new master, or basically create a new master which will act for writes. So till that time the system will be operational but for read only, and it will not perform writes. So this is the master slave replication. And what are the disadvantages to this replication, basically to this master slave replication? So one is we need additional logic in basically to promote a slave to master. As I already told you, when the master goes down, we need to basically appoint a master from these slaves. So we need this additional logic. Okay, so now let's move to the master master application. So basically what is master master application? So in master master application, what we have is basically both masters serve reads and writes and coordinate with each other on writes. So now earlier only master was serving the writes, and now both the masters serve writes and reads, and basically they have to coordinate between each writes. So if either master goes down, the system can continue to operate with both reads and writes, because there is no slave, so both are masters. So if one master goes down, the other master will serve both read and writes. So what are the disadvantages here? So the major disadvantage is you will need a load balancer, or you'll need basically to make change to the application logic to determine where to write, because now you have two masters, and so either you need a load balancer, or either you need to make changes to your application logic. And the other very major disadvantage is that most master master systems are either loosely consistent, that is violating the ACID property, or they have increased write latency due to this synchronization between the masters. So this is very like major disadvantage of this system. So we have another one major disadvantage of this master master application, that is when more write nodes are added, the conflict resolution comes into play and the latency increases, because we need to basically coordinate between the both masters for write. So this is like very major disadvantage to this system. So we have talked about disadvantages of both master master application and master slave application in specific. Now there are few common disadvantages which are true for both of these replication. So let's discuss about them. So basically first one is there is a potential for loss of data, and when this potential is basically if the master fails before any newly written data can be replicated to other nodes. So in this case we'll be having a loss of data. And what are the other disadvantages? So basically other one is like since the writes are replayed to all the read replicas, so if there are a lot of writes, what happens is the read replicas can get bogged down with replaying writes, and then they can't do any more reads. So in that case the read replicas will be just writing all the writes, and they will not be able to serve the reads. So this is like another major disadvantage to this replication. So other disadvantages are, so basically the more read slaves, the more you have to replicate, which leads to greater replication lag. So these are few common problems we face in replication. And the other one we have is, so basically on subsystems what happens is writing to the master can spawn multiple threads to write in parallel, whereas read replicas only support writing sequentially within using a single thread. So in that case replication adds more hardware and additional complexity. So I think you would have got a major picture of what failover is, what are the disadvantages to failover, what are the different types of failover, and basically what replication is, basically different types of replication, and what are the disadvantages to replication. I know like it is more of technical stuff. You would have listened to many technical terms for the first time. So don't worry in the first place, because as you see my tutorials, as I keep on creating my tutorials, basically this was my first tutorial. So basically you can feel that like it's overwhelming, or it's over extra knowledge is passed to you in the first tutorial itself. I don't mean to like demotivate you, but you should, what you should do is, to follow me, you should write what I am speaking. So basically you should create the notes, so that in future when you are preparing for the interview, or when you are going for the interview and you have the interview schedule for the next day, you can't watch the full video, so you can just read your notes. So basically when I'm speaking, you can pause the video, and what I'm saying, you can create a notes of out of these, because these terms, these lines are very important. And if you can use these lines like the same way in front of interviewer, like what are a disadvantage of application, how you can do failover, types of failover, and if you can use these knowledge to create your system like a highly available system, that would be the best thing. So I would suggest you to keep a note of all these things which I'm telling you for your future reference, so that you don't have to view the uh, entire video again, and you can just view your notes. So I hope this tutorial was a bit helpful for you, and you should now be able to design any application which is highly available. So if you ask me the crux of this video, so basically the crux is you need to avoid any single point of failure in your system. And how you can basically avoid the system point of single point of failures? So you can avoid single point of failures by doing failover and basically replicating the data. So this is how you can achieve highly available. So I would recommend you joining the Telegram link which I have posted in the description, so that you can discuss your doubts related to any system design you would have faced, or any question you would have faced in interview. So yeah, you can join that group. And also if you want, you can like my Facebook page. I have posted the link in video, so that you can basically get in touch with me or ask any doubts if you have. So next tutorial I'll be posting in a day or two. So stay tuned and all the best.